Mr. President, for months when you were asked about your age, you would respond with the words, watch me. Many American people have been watching, and they have expressed concerns about your age.
That is your judgment. That is your judgment. That is not the judgment of the press.
They express concerns about your mental acuity. They say that you are too old. Mr. President, in December, you told me that you believe there are many other Democrats who could defeat Donald Trump. So why does it have to be you now? What is your answer to that question?
Because I'm the most qualified person in this country to be president of the United States and finish the job I started.
I don't think the president did himself any favors in that speech. He undercut two of his biggest messages. The adults are back in charge by sort of being dismissive of, yes, he was exonerated. He's not going to be convicted or tried for this, but there's some really damning pieces of information in here. He had deliberations around Afghan war plans with him. He spoke to a biographer about classified documents who didn't have clearance. This showed a decent level of reckless mishandling of classified information.
He said in that he didn't.
He said that he didn't. So I think there was a dismissiveness to the seriousness of this. And then on the other hand, they were using this bizarre line to say he stepped away from an international crisis, the biggest attack on our ally Israel since the Holocaust, to go deal with a self-inflicted investigation by the Department of Justice. How is that supposed to inspire confidence? I don't know why he went back out. He already said most of this in Virginia today, but this is becoming a 5-alarm fire for the White House.
Mexico? Where did that come from? I mean, that's the only thing anyone's going to remember from this.
A 5-alarm fire. That's CNN. A 5-alarm fire. Gang, this is as serious as it gets. This is it. I mean, again, when the White House shills at CNN declare that what you just did is a 5-alarm fire, I mean, gang, they know the jig is up for the convalescent in chief, old Dementia Joe. They know it. They did everything they could to hide it. And it just keeps getting worse. And now the whole world is seeing it. The whole world is seeing that Biden is indeed the convalescent in chief. And I'm going to show you why this is all becoming the Democrats' absolute worst nightmare imaginable. Wait until you see what all of this means for 2024. Greetings, everyone. It is Live Stream Friday. I am your host, Dr. Steve, your patron professor, here to help you to think better so you can feel better in these crazy and turbulent times. So make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. My, oh my, what a night of news. It's been amazing 12, 14 hours. We got the Biden press conference disaster. We got the Tucker bombshell interview with Vladimir Putin. That was 2 hours long. I watched every minute of it. It was amazing. Let's chat about that if you like. We got the Supreme Court savaging the lawyer for the Colorado Supremes, trying to boot Trump off the ballot. I mean, we got a lot to talk about. Unfortunately, as many of you know, our super chats have been disabled. Our super chats, by which you would normally send me your questions, they're disabled. And that's because big tech has totally and completely demonetized us. Yes, this channel has been, if you have not heard, it's been the last couple of months, this channel has been totally demonetized. But gang, you have come to our rescue. And literally thousands of you have stuck it to big tech overlords by making the courageous decision to join our Insiders Club, where you can have direct access to me and to one another, as we are never, ever, ever going to be interrupted by big tech overlords. And so today you can still ask me your questions. I'll answer each and every one of them on the live stream. But instead of the super chats, just click on that link below or go to join.turleytalks.com. You just sign up on our email list. So that's the first and foremost. So we make sure never, ever to lose contact with each other. But then you can join our Insiders Club and you can ask me your questions via the Insiders Club platform, and I'll answer them here on air. And I'm going to return the gift to you. Guys are so kind. So many of you get, and you know who you are. You're amazing. You give me 10, you put in the super chats, $10, $20, $50 when you ask your questions. Gang, click on the link below or go to join.turleytalks.com, sign up for our Insiders Club. And for just $5 a month for the entire month, you can ask me as many questions you want. It's just my way of showing my appreciation to you because of how much you've done for us. So click on the link below, join our Insiders Club, send me your questions, and it'll be my honor to answer them here live for you right now. And gang, again, so I say this, every week, but from the bottom of my heart, you are my heroes. Thank you so much for coming to our rescue. I just got word we're approaching 6,000 of you have joined our Insiders Club. So I cannot thank you enough for it. If you haven't, click on the link and ask, give me your question, and just enjoy the fellowship that you're going to have with your fellow patriots all over the world, nearly 6,000 of them. And you're going to learn about how we're building the parallel economy each and every week as well. You're going to love it. Click on the link below. All right, let's dive right in here, gang. What do I say? What does any of us say? Last night was quite literally a tale of two cities, a tale of two civilizations for all the world to see. On the one side, the world saw Russian President Vladimir Putin in his interview with Tucker Carlson, an interview that has now exceeded 100 million views on X, formerly known as Twitter. It was frankly a rather astonishing interview, 2 hours long, 2 hours covering 1,100 years of Russian history. It covered contemporary geopolitical strategy. It got into the nitty-gritty of economics. It talked about the future of the dollar as the world's default currency. It talked about the emergence of BRICS, right? The big geopolitical bloc and the recalibration of world order. It was a, frankly, extraordinarily informative interview. On the other side, well, the world saw this.
As you know, initially, the president of Mexico, Sisi, did not want to open up the gate to allow humanitarian material to get in. I talked to him. I convinced him to open the gate. I talked to Bibi to open the gate on the Israeli side.
He might as well just be talking inside a closet. I mean, you just heard Joe Biden proudly declare that he, the president of the United States, convinced Mexico to open its borders to Gaza. That's what you just heard. And not only that, but their president, El-Sisi, Mexico's president, El-Sisi, yeah, he just happens to be the president of Egypt. Make no mistake, gang, the world saw those two interviews. The world saw those two world leaders speaking back to back last night. And let me ask you, based on what they saw last night, whose side do you think they're on? Which administration do you think the vast majority of the world's population sees as stable, as competent, as strategic, capable, and skilled? Now, as you all know by now, that Biden press conference last night was hastily thrown together, and it obviously showed that the White House was in total and complete panic over the bombshell report dropped by special counsel Robert Hur that probed Biden's illegal mishandling of classified documents in his garage. Indeed, Hur's investigation uncovered a rather shocking habit of Biden's in removing classified documents from their secure locations, both as a sitting senator as well as vice president, over the course of 15 years. Now, any one of those acts would have been a felony, to remove classified documents and store them in unsecured fashion like a garage. Biden did it multiple times over the course of 15 years. The report details each and every offense, and it's about as damning as it could possibly be. The report makes it clear Biden knew they were there when he was doing his biography with his ghostwriter. We have tapes of him talking about classified information and documents that he had in his possession in his home in Delaware that he should not have had as VP. I mean, it's about as damning as it can possibly get. It would land any one of us in jail. But then Hur almost like James Comey with Hillary, did something very odd, very strange. Something that has absolutely nothing to do with his role as special counsel. He concluded that a jury would not convict Biden precisely because they would sympathize with his old age and his obvious senility. Her's report detailed how Biden could not remember when he was vice president. He couldn't remember when his term began. He didn't remember even within several years when his son Beau died. In other words, he was clearly suffering from severe cognitive degeneration. And according to her, that would make Biden too sympathetic to a jury. And so, while he clearly violated the law multiple times, because he's so old and senile, and because that elderly senility would evoke sympathy, there's just no point in dragging this through a trial. And so charges will not be pressed. Now, needless to say, when that report dropped, it lit a powder keg throughout DC. I mean, boom! Twitter, social media, cable news, they exploded almost immediately. Speaker Mike Johnson came out and publicly declared that Biden is completely unfit for Oval Office. Quote, a man too incapable of being held accountable for mishandling classified information is certainly unfit for the Oval Office. Again, almost immediately, the 25th Amendment, the amendment that spells out the procedures for removing a sitting president that can no longer carry out his duties, started trending on X, formerly known as Twitter. Senator Josh Hawley explicitly called for invoking the 25th Amendment. Senator Mike Lee of Utah tweeted out, if ever there were a time to invoke the 25th Amendment, wouldn't that time be now? Representative Mary Miller of Illinois followed suit. Quote, for the safety of our nation, Joe Biden must resign. He could not remember basic facts about his life. He's not competent to remain as commander-in-chief, and every day that he remains, he puts America at risk. If he won't resign, the cabinet must invoke the 25th Amendment. And it went on and on and on. It just caught on like wildfire. Here's Georgia firebrand Marjorie Taylor Greene.
I think we're in a national security crisis. If the man is not fit to serve trial, Joe Biden has not served a fit trial, then he is not fit to serve as president of the United States. As president of the United States, he carries around the nuclear football. I mean, think about that. He is making the biggest decisions on behalf of our entire country, not only our country, but in a large part, the entire world. Yet he's not able to serve, not able to stand trial for all the documents that he kept, not only as vice president, but also as a senator. This is extremely serious. I look forward to talking with Speaker Johnson and many of my colleagues. We need to look at possibly impeachment, but the cabinet should be invoking the 25th Amendment.
He's a sitting president, so he can't sit trial, right? But the special counsel is saying, quote, he spoke painfully slow. He struggled to remember events. He strained to read and remember his own notebook entries. That his he didn't remember when his vice presidency began and ended, asking, quote, in 2009, was I still vice president? And his memory appeared hazy about key events. So you're thinking you're going to ask your colleagues to look into this more?
We have to. I mean, we absolutely have to. This cannot be dismissed. And look at recently at his speaking events where he's talking about speaking to people that have already died. His mental clarity, his memory, his ability to make decisions is extremely important as president of the United States. And the Democrat Party cannot hide this anymore. We have to move forward and do something about it.
Congressman.
Gang, if you're just joining us, if you want to ask a question because YouTube has demonetized our channel, you could just click on the link below and join our Insiders Club and ask me your question through that platform. It's just $5 a month. And you can ask me any questions that you want, as many as you want. And it'll be my joy to answer them on this live stream. Also, as many of you know, gang, I am a huge proponent of gold, right? The financial wizard Peter Schiff has often said, if you want to protect your savings, you can't do better than investing in gold. And that advice became all the more significant in light of President Trump's very dire warning about America and the very thing we depend on to live, the U.S. dollar. Trump is predicting that we may indeed lose our status as the world's reserve currency in the not-so-distant future, which could adversely impact your retirement savings and your quality of life. So that's why you should take Trump's warning seriously by clicking on the link below and go to turleywarning.com right now, because there you'll see what thousands of patriots are doing to help protect their savings before it's too late. Plus, when you click on that link, you even see how to get up to $10,000 in free silver to protect your savings. But gang, don't wait. We may not have long if Trump's prophecy comes true. So hurry up, click on that link, or go to turleywarning.com right now. And they're great, gang. Goldco is amazing. Again, for me, you know, in these crazy times we live, right? Gold, solid gold, real estate is key. Gold and crypto. I'm a big crypto guy as well. Gold keeps your money safe, while crypto at least potentially can grow it and grow it well. So definitely check out our Patriots sponsors over at Goldco. All right. Now, it kept going and going and going all day. Senators Rick Scott, Marco Rubio, they're all calling for the 25th. Even someone as measured as Byron York of the Washington Examiner tweeted out, calling this a devastating report that does indeed invoke 25th Amendment territory. Even Democrats like Dean Phillips of Minnesota are sounding the alarm. Phillips is predicting a Republican landslide in November if the Democrats don't take out Biden. That's why Phillips is challenging him for the nomination. And the New York Post ran the headline, "Bombshell probe says Biden too senile to charge." And they tweeted, Biden's constant verbal blunders show he is not fit to lead the country. So obviously the White House saw this powder keg exploding. They saw this hornet's nest erupting, this frenzy, and they knew they had to do something to calm it down. They had to do something to quell it. And so the geniuses at the White House decided to hold an ad hoc press conference. They actually believe, the same guys who, right, do you remember Biden's cake? We don't have it, Josh. I should have given it to you. Remember Biden's last birthday cake with like the flamethrower on top of it? You know, just all the candles. And it's just this massive fire, and he's trying to blow it out, and he's sputtering all over his lips and so forth. These same geniuses who gave him that cake, which was an optics disaster, thought, hey, let's have an ad hoc press conference. Let's have old Joe get out there and show him how sharp he really is. They thought putting Biden in front of the American people with him opening up his oatmeal-crusted mouth would somehow assuage the concerns that hundreds of millions of people have over the cognitive health of their incontinent in chief. Let's just say things went about precisely what we would have thought they went about. See, take a look.
Something the special counsel said in his report is that one of the reasons you were not charged is because, in his description, you are a well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory.
I'm well-meaning, and I'm an elderly man, and I know what the hell I'm doing. I've been president. I put this country back on its feet. I don't need his recommendation. It's
How
totally
bad is your memory, and can you continue as president?
My memory is so bad I let you speak. That's
your memory has gotten worse, Mr. President?
My memory is not good. My memory is fine. My memory, take a look at what I've done since I become president. None of you thought I could pass any of the things I got passed. How'd that happen? You know, I guess I just forgot what was going on.
Mr. President.
Voters have concerns about your age. How are you going to assuage them? And do you fear that this report is only going to fuel further concerns about your age?
Only by some of you.
Mr. President,
criminal liability today. Do you take responsibility for at least being careless with classified material?
I take responsibility for not having seen exactly what my staff was doing. It goes in and points out things that appeared in my garage, things that came out of my home, things that were moved not by me, but my staff.
Mr. President, for months when you were asked about your age, you would respond with the words, "Watch me." Many American people have been watching, and they have expressed concerns about your age.
That is your judgment. That is your judgment. That is not the judgment of the press.
They expressed concerns about your mental acuity. They say that you are too old. Mr. President, in December, you told me that you believe there are many other Democrats who could defeat Donald Trump. So why does it have to be you now? What is your answer to that question?
Because I'm the most qualified person in this country to be president of the United States and finish the job I started.
Do you believe that? Mr. President, why are you confusing the names of world leaders?
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone. Stop. Uncle. I mean, look, gang. You know, I got to be honest. I mean, there's almost a sense of, I mean, frankly, cruelty here. I mean, this is like, I don't know, it's like, yeah. It's like kicking a wounded horse or something. I mean, you could see it in his face. His brain cannot process all those voices speaking to him all at once. They, of course, conflict with the voices that are already going on in his head. But, I mean, yeah, it was really that bad. Ben Shapiro actually had a great tweet on it. He called it the Challenger explosion of press conferences. It was a full disaster. And the headline today, as you can see here, Fox News, Biden blistered by mainstream media after disaster press conference. An elderly, irritable man. Real Clear Politics. Biden's unannounced press conference was an absolute disaster. Mediate. Joe Biden's My Memory is Fine press conference was an all-time PR disaster. PJ Media, Biden's unannounced nighttime speech, an absolute disaster. Are you catching a bit of a theme there? It was, despite the best efforts of the legacy media to try to prop up this weekend at Bernie's presidency, it was, for all the world to see, an obvious, explicit, unmitigated disaster. It was the answer to the question that Biden's people had been asking previously all day long yesterday. How could things possibly get worse? Well, there you are. That's how things could get worse. You put up Biden without his talking points to try to put two coherent sentences together and then to be able to enunciate, his ability to enunciate. It's just gone. And it gets worse every month. So now there are reports that moves are indeed being made to invoke the 25th. New York Representative Claudia Tenney has sent a letter to Attorney General Merrick Garland calling for the cabinet to explore the use of the Constitution's 25th Amendment to remove Biden from office. Obviously, Merrick Garland is incurably corrupt to do anything about it. But gang, when all is said and done, I think you don't need the 25th Amendment here. The damage has already been done. The damage yesterday to Biden's possible presidential prospects, as it were, are beyond words. What happened yesterday sealed his fate. Now, that's not necessarily good news, because now, as you know, they're going to have to cheat. There's no other way they can win. I mean, that was probably the most obvious revelation from what happened last night and in the headlines this morning. They know, the legacy media knows they can't cover for this. I mean, hiding the guy in his basement again, at least in 2020, he could still talk. He could still at least enunciate sentences. He wasn't talking to dead people. Now he can't find his way off the stage. Jill is giving him directions I came across the Babylon Bee. The headline, it was hilarious. It was Biden launches investigation on pretty woman who keeps following him around. It shows a picture of Joe Biden or something like that. I think they were being kind to her. I don't even remember to say pretty woman or not. But they can't hide it anymore. And if they can't hide it, how on earth do they expect the vast majority of the American public, Republicans and independents, to vote him back into office when he shouldn't even be allowed to drive a car? This is serious stuff for 2024. I'm going to show you exactly what to expect here. But gang, first, I do want to show you what you can do to stick it to the ruling elite. Have you ever seen the latest report on the politicians trading in 2023? It's maddening. These corrupt politicians beat the market every single year. You could see the same politicians. They've hit over 200% in investment returns. How are they able to do that? Well, guess what? That's exactly what you're going to learn how to do as well. You need to click on that link below and learn how to stick it to the establishment by using their own corruption against them. Thanks to a little-known SEC database, guess what? We can have access to the very same trading secrets these politicians are privy to. We get to see what stocks corporate CEOs are buying up in real time, and then we get to piggyback on their trades to gain the same advantage for ourselves that Pelosi and the crooks in D.C. have. My friend Ross Givens has been tracking insider trading for years now, and his recommendations have led to investment returns of over 200%. Some have hit as high as nearly 1,500%, and now it's your turn. Click on that link below right now and learn how you too can learn to trade like Pelosi. Click on that link and learn how to gain an insider advantage for yourself today. All right, gang. So bottom line here. What's happening right now as we speak really is the Democrats' worst nightmare come true. This is what you've got to get here is this issue of Biden's age and senility is his Achilles heel. Forget the border. Forget the economy. Forget the international order. Forget inflation. Right? All of those things can be reversed. All of those things can be reversed, right? We can reverse the problem at the border. We can reverse inflation. We can reverse a stagnant economy. We can reverse or help to reverse a international order gone mad. All those things can be reversed. What you have to understand with the problem of Biden's age and senility is these things cannot be reversed. They only get worse. This is Biden's Achilles heel. Make no mistake, his age and his senility are Biden's ultimate Achilles heel. Now, we talked about this yesterday. The latest NBC poll that was dropped, it was a bombshell poll that dropped this week, found that Biden's age and cognitive decline ranked among the top concerns voters have for his presidency. 76% of voters. I will say that again. 76% of voters are concerned about Biden's cognitive degeneracy. 62% are very concerned. Those are Republicans and independents combined. That's a supermajority. So this is what has Democrats up at night in total panic. They know voters are not going to re-elect a president they do not believe not only to be not cognitively fit for the job, but suffering from a cognitive decline that's only going to get worse. Right? Everything else can be reversed. All the issues can be reversed. Biden's cognitive condition and age can't. This is the Achilles heel. This is what you can hit it and hit it and hit it and make him for the whole rest of the year go, my memory's fine. My memory's fine. I told you. That's why I got the president of Mexico to open up his borders to Israel. You just keep smacking it. Your memory, no, my memory's fine. And what happens? It delegitimizes his memory and his cognitive abilities more and more for more and more people every single day. Democrats know this. They know this. They know this is Biden's Achilles heel. But what's making it even worse for them is that same NBC poll found that voters are starting to make a connection between Biden's mental degeneration and the nation's economic and cultural degeneration as well. So what they found in the poll is that in issue after issue after issue, Biden's approval rating and trust in handling those issues has plummeted in proportion to those who are very concerned about his cognitive abilities. So just in the last 4 years, back in 2020, Biden had a 9-point lead over Trump in terms of his being perceived as competent and effective. Today, Trump has a 16-point lead. That's a 25-point swing to Trump. That's before, keep in mind, this report came out. Back in October 2020, Biden led Trump by a point for having the necessary mental and physical health to be president. Again, it's an NBC poll, so it's obviously going to be skewed to the left. Today, it's now Trump with a near 25-point lead over Biden. It's 23 points, so it's a 24-point swing. And all down ticket issues, they exemplify the same pattern. In dealing with crime and violence back in 2020, Biden was +4 over Trump. Today, now in 2024, it's Trump +21. In securing the border, Trump has more than doubled his lead in the last 4 years. And in dealing with the economy, Trump has tripled his lead in the last 4 years. Biden's painfully obvious cognitive decline is being seen by more and more voters as the primary cause for our nation's decline. And this report, what this report did yesterday, is it not only served to confirm what we all knew, but it now made it the major political issue for 2024. Biden's cognitive health, that the whole world was shocked to gaze upon. Biden's cognitive health is now officially the major political issue of 2024. And it is one he is totally incapable of defending himself against. Now, all that said, I have to be honest with you, and I've been doing some thinking about this and doing some reading about this. All of that said, I still, believe it or not, I still don't think, I may be wrong, we'll see, but I still don't think that the Democrats have anyone else to run in November. It's Biden or bust at this point. I still think they're going to try to run him. I think it's going to be a disaster. But as far as they're concerned, it's going to be less of a disaster than if they ran Kamala. Kamala's not a disaster. Kamala's a freaking Holocaust. I mean, Kamala would be a nuclear Holocaust. Even Gavin Newsom. Don't tell Bill Maher this, but Gavin Newsom doesn't poll very well. Gavin Newsom is not a very popular governor. He's not a very popular presidential candidate. Yeah, he'll win California. He'll win the blue states, but can he win Wisconsin, Iowa, Michigan, blue-collar Michigan, blue-collar Pennsylvania? Doesn't look like it. So I think the Democrats are stuck with Biden. And I think their strategy is going to try to make him as sympathetic a figure as possible. So they're, in effect, what they're going to do is they're going to take Her's report and run with it. Oh, so you're saying that juries would sympathize with the guy. Oh, okay, Len, let's milk this. Let's milk this. Yeah, he's a poor old senile man. Don't you want your grandpa's president? But if you think about it, I mean, make him as sympathetic as you want. As Victor Davis Hansen's pointed out, I mean, voters recognize that someone who has lost his faculties, and who would not be allowed to drive a semi-truck or teach a class or diagnose a patient or argue a case or wire a house or even cook a hamburger, he's not to be seen as fit enough to run the United States of America. I honestly, and again, I say this, just this doesn't come easy. I mean, I'm just going to be blunt. I think this is over. I think barring the most extreme election shenanigans, which they will attempt, I think Biden is cooked. And now the question for the Democrats is simply, really, in the end, how on earth do we minimize the damage in November? Over to you, gang. As Josh, our moderator, puts together your questions, remember, if you want to ask a question because YouTube has demonetized our channel, just click on the link below. Join our Insiders Club and ask me your questions through the platform. Just $5 a month. You can ask me as many questions as you like. I will answer them right here, right now. Also, too, all this talk about election shenanigans brings up something here. I've been getting some really important questions of late about the election that I think are at the top of everyone's mind. I specifically got a question from one of our amazing Insiders members earlier this week asking me, how confident should we be in the election, even though Trump is ahead? He's way ahead in the polls right now. And after this bombshell, you can imagine he's going to be plus 10 at this point. But how confident should we be in the election? Because we all know what happened last time. And it's, this is probably the number one issue for us. Because, I mean, if you think about it, if they know Biden is going to lose, if they know there's no way he can win, what else are they going to do? They have no other recourse left. So I posted that question on our community page. And of course, all of you responded just as concerned about this as I am. The question is one that every single person who cares about the future of our country needs to be asking. Now, I've given this topic a lot of thought, and I've come up with 3 big strategies that I want to share with you to protect our election. These are things we can actively do to make November a secure election. But as I'm sure you're aware, I really can't share them with you here, especially being demonetized on YouTube. So what I have decided to do is host a pop-up event at the end of next week instead of the usual Friday live stream next week, where we can go off platform together and I can dive into how we can protect the election from any kinds of shenanigans and have a free and fair election finally once again. And I'll share more about that with you next week, about where you can sign up and so forth. I just wanted to put this at the top of your radar so you can get ready for next week. What do you all think? Is that something you want to do? Is that something you're going to sign up for? Comment below if you'd like to come, and stay tuned next week and I'll send all the information to you. All right, Josh, let's see what questions we got. Preguntas. Who the heck is running the government of the U.S.? And I love it, Michaelis. Great question. And that's what everybody wants to know. And here's at least a partial answer. Obviously not the most competent people. Obviously not the most competent, qualified people. Obviously. The country is just falling apart. So if it's not him, if he's just eating his applesauce in the corner, in a blanket and rocking back and forth, if it's not him, it's got to be another team. And they're obviously incredibly incompetent. Vaughn, Dr. C, tell us how they're going to punish us for Tucker's interview with Putin. Good question. We'll see, Vaughn. I don't know. The problem is that it's reached so many people now, 100 million people. Everyone sees it. There was nothing wrong. He interrupted him and challenged him several times when he went on that 30-minute lecture on 1,200 years of Russian history and Ukrainian history and the like. It was culminating in our current geopolitical moment. And even Tucker said he thought he was just filibustering. He's trying to filibuster. Look, I'm an American, right? Even Tucker said this in his after interview kind of briefing, 9-minute or so briefing. I'm an American. I just want a quick, fast answer. Just give me a quick answer. No, not the Russian mind. No. The Russian mind's like, well, if you as an American really want to get and understand what's going on here. Let's go back to Prince Vladimir and his baptism in Crimea and all that. I mean, it was just absolutely fascinating. It's just obviously what a contrast to what we saw in our own hemisphere in Washington, D.C. I don't know. We'll see. The EU is already talking about sanctioning Tucker in some way, shape, or form. I haven't seen any social media censorship yet that I know of. Maybe you guys will report it. So we'll see. We'll keep an eye on it. But enough people have seen it that it was a thoroughly legitimate, solid interview, good questions, and certainly far more of a probing, critical interview than anything you would see from any Western media outlet when it comes to Zelensky. Charles, good to see you. I also watched the Tucker Vladimir interview. It almost sounded like Vladimir was plagiarizing you. Did you attend his classes? No, we're looking at the same kind of things here. Yeah, that's funny. That's funny you would say it. Yeah, I mean, so I know there'll probably be a lot of questions about what I thought about the interview. And Charles, that's very kind of you. Oh, I think some people say then I'm just wait a minute. That makes Putin a Turley puppet. That's interesting. Yeah, right. Look, it was a fascinating interview. And, if you have been following the channel, this channel over the last 2 years, like Charles said, in effect, there was really nothing new there. In terms substantively, there was, or big picture, there was nothing new. He hit all the points, particularly the geopolitical points that we've been discussing for 2 years now, nonstop. And again, to a lot of detriment. We lost a lot of Insiders Club members because they accused me of being a Putin stooge, and I'm just being a Putin propaganda. Just all this, just very unthinking kind of stuff. So, but hey, I mean, sometimes you just have to take a stand on things when they're unpopular, and even among your own rank and file, because I think this is one of the areas that conservatives are actually very weak in, is understanding conservatism in an international context. Conservatism in Russia is going to look different than conservatism in India. They're not the same. It's not libertarianism. It's not, National Review setting up an office in those places. Nationalism, populism, and traditionalism will have a very collage-like look to it. But in the end, I think Putin absolutely affirmed that the ultimate transgression here was the NATO encroachment on the Russian hegemonic sphere that John Mearsheimer, I think nearly a decade ago, in his lecture on YouTube, over like 20 million views, warned about. Right, John Mearsheimer, the University of Chicago, I don't push Putin talking points. I tend to push John Mearsheimer talking points, of anyone. But we're reading the same things here, and we're operating with some of the same international, interrelations, geopolitical theory here on great power politics. But Putin talked about the unipolar world after 1991, the United States being the sole superpower in the world, and thereby deliberately attempted to reconstitute the international order into what's called the rules-based order, meaning that order is monopolized by United States-based institutions like the IMF and the WTO and the World Bank that writes the rules that creates the order for the world. And if you're in that order, you're good. And if you're outside of that order, like North Korea or Iran, you're bad. It's that simple. And Russia started to play by those rules. But Russia learned very early on, after 2000, after Putin came to power, that this was becoming increasingly a threat to their national security, particularly with the encroachment of NATO, and that it was imperative for the national security of Russia to turn that unipolar world order into a multipolar one. That we should want to see China rise as a power. We should want to see India rise as a power. We should want to see Russia rise as a power. We should want to see Saudi Arabia rise as a power, and so forth. And that would, in effect, challenge this unipolar, hegemonic, U.S.-based order. He brought up Munich, what was it, 2007 speech, 2009, 2000, I can't remember which one, at NATO. It was at the NATO security conference. Remember, Putin went to every NATO meeting. He talked about it openly, talked about with Bill Clinton. He went to every NATO meeting up to about that point where he told them, you can only go so far. You are not allowed to go anywhere near Ukraine or Georgia. That is part of the Russian sphere. And if you go there, we're going to have problems. He was laughed at. He was laughed at originally by the Bush administration. Because why? Because we're a unipolar world. We do whatever we want. We set the rules. You play by our rules. We don't play by yours. So he talked about the way they built up their nation, their economy, their military, their culture, particularly with the rise of the Russian Orthodox Church, which was interesting. That came up several times last night. He brought up the Maidan Revolution in 2014 in Ukraine. It was a color revolution orchestrated by the United States State Department to overthrow a duly elected Ukrainian government. The president actually had to leave the country. He talked about how Russia took over Crimea shortly thereafter because the ethnic Russians there wanted them to. They were so freaked out by the radical fascistic forces that were taking over in Kiev as a result of that Maidan revolution. He talked about how Ukrainian forces were shelling and bombarding innocent villages in the Donbass region after they tried to break away, again because they were ethnic Russians and didn't want to be a part of the craziness they saw in Kiev. He talked about how Zelensky walked away from the Minsk Accords that Russia had helped broker to bring peace. And he talked about how NATO forces were basically occupying Ukraine in their attempt to take back the Donbass region. And that fact alone had rendered Ukraine a de facto NATO state. And that was the line that Putin drew back at the Munich conference. You cross that line, Russia's going to act, just like John Mearsheimer predicted. So there you go. I mean, this is the essence of, I believe, what happened, and the disastrous response by the bumbling Biden administration has not been to defend democracy. Zelensky, democracy? Yeah, right. Why don't we ask a certain YouTube journalist who was in Kiev, or he wasn't in Kiev, but he was in Ukraine. What this kind of, I'm not going to say his name. You guys, it was the old Italian currency. Why don't we ask somebody by the name of the old Italian currency what he thinks of the democratic state of Ukraine right now? You'll have a hard time. Scumbags. So, yeah, it's not about democracy. In the end, it's ultimately about trying to defend the United States unipolar order that cannot be maintained in a rising civilizationalist world. So there you are. That's what I think. Thanks, Charles. Are you making this live stream available to watch later on your Insiders Club platform? We could, Joshua. Sure, absolutely, Josh. Our Josh, if you could take care of that, sure, we can make sure we do that. Bob, has KJP commented on this? You know, Bob, I'm not going to go down a rabbit trail with you, Bob. I'm not going to go down with a rabbit. I mean, you just look at all the accomplishments this president has made on this issue and that issue and that issue and that issue and that issue. Then, of course, when we look at those issues, he hasn't done diddly squat. But I mean, I'm not going to deal with it, Bob. I'm not going to deal with it, Bob. I'm not going to deal with it. David Turner, a sitting president can't be tried. Is that Fox view? I don't know. It's a good question. I don't know the nuances of the law on that. I don't think you can. Once they're gone, at least we're going to see if they have immunity from being tried. But again, this was not for crimes committed as president. This was crimes committed before he was president. That's what makes it a little complicated. Terry, are generals warning China that they won't let Joe nuke them? Good question. Yeah, just like they did with Trump, right? Old woke Millie. Yeah, good. Yeah, don't don't hold your breath. I mean, these guys, again, it's this entire weird, strange, neo-feudalized system, re-feudalized system of billionaires and bureaucrats all coming together to amass more power than any humans have ever amassed before. And they're not going to. Trump is the interruption to that gravy train, not Biden. So they're not going to do anything about it. Le Daniels, we've been screaming this for ages. Is there any ability for the people who have hidden this for so long and used it to control the presidential office? It seems treasonous to hide this and treat the presidency as though they were elected. It's infuriating how this has been allowed to continue. Again, interestingly, this came up in Tucker's interview with Putin last night, where he said, Putin had asked Clinton if we wanted to join NATO, could we? Clinton responded. Now, this is, if I recall, this is when Putin was an underling under Yeltsin. Clinton responded, yeah, I don't see why not. Then a couple of hours later at dinner, Clinton said, yeah, I talked to my people and they said, no, it's a no-go. And Tucker seized on that immediately and said, so unelected people are running our policy. Unelected people are basically running our government. And Putin just chuckled and said, yeah, absolutely. This is what makes me so upset when people cast Putin as this authoritarian dictator. Every independent poll shows this. Putin has overwhelming support. The Russian people love him. 80% support. All right. Overwhelming. There's just no way around that. He gets in and then he does what the people want. He cracks down on these unelected bureaucrats, as it were, and he gets done what the people want. We elect our leaders, and then they're told by unelected bureaucrats what to do. But then we accuse Russia of being the authoritarian totalitarianism. So no, I'm with you. I mean, this is insane. We'll see where it goes. Again, I think this is his Achilles heel. And I think this is really going to hurt him in 2024. I mean, mercilessly so. And it will hopefully open up even more cans of worms, especially if Trump is reelected and he comes in and he does a full investigation. And he starts fumigating DC and then shows. That's what I want to see. I want Trump to show us all the dirty laundry for all the world to see of how corrupt our powers that be have become. So we'll see. William, what's your take on the Supreme Court session on the Colorado removal of Trump's from the ballot? Well, I'm glad you asked me. Again, it was a crazy 12 hours or so. Remember, we also had Nevada, the Nevada caucus as well yesterday, where Trump, well, we could talk, maybe you got a question, but we could talk. Trump got another record yesterday. It was absolutely amazing. Yeah, I mean, I don't have a lot to add. Obviously, the overwhelmingly not unanimous, but overwhelming consensus is that SCOTUS is going to shoot this down big time. Some are predicting 9-0, some are predicting 7-2. But just by the questions that they were asking, I mean, Brett Kavanaugh, bottom line, just went straight for the jugular. How on earth is this democratic? I mean, and then this idiot, this Jason Murray, this Colorado attorney who clerked, if I recall, he clerked for what's his name? For one of the justices. Why am I forgetting? What's the conservative Gorsuch? Oh gosh, just so you know, I am a trooper today. I'm taking some serious cold meds. I have a little bit of it's feeling great now, but man, I mean, I was up last night. I was like, I'm feeling good, but I'm sorry. So sorry if I'm not 100% today. Forgive me. I'm 100%. No problem with my memory. So Brett Kavanaugh asks, "How's this democratic?" I mean, Clarence Thomas to me is the king. I mean, he's the GOAT. I mean, he just asked this guy, this Colorado attorney, Jason Murray, can you give me a single historical example of the 14th Amendment ever being used anyway remotely like you want to use it? Just give me one. Give me a single example in our nation's history where a state Supreme Court removed a presidential candidate's name from the ballot. Give me one. Right. He sounded like Biden, basically, right? Even Chief Justice John Roberts said, doesn't this mean that the Republicans could turn around and take Joe Biden off the ballot because of the $10 billion he gave to Iran, right? Isn't he colluding with the enemy? I mean, just so in other words, he's like, this obviously is taking us down a road we're not going to let you take us down. But this nut, this Jason Murray, I mean, it's just the weirdness of hearing him try to argue for basically the death of our republic. It was using our republic to kill it. It's just odd. So there you go. It looks like this is a slam dunk. Franklin, do you think that if Trump is found guilty by Washington jury, he'll still win the election? Easily. Yeah, I don't see that factoring it at all. Everybody knows he's going to get convicted. Everybody knows he's going to get convicted. It may shave off a point or two, but if he's got a 10-point lead, it doesn't matter. It's not going to matter at all. They could see it's a kangaroo court. Richard, do you think part of the ire over the Tucker Putin interview may have much to do with the juxtaposition of Putin's ability to speak extemporaneously for 2 hours versus Biden's inability to speak from notes for 10 minutes? I wouldn't doubt it. I think you're on to it, to be honest with you. I do. I think you're on to it. I think there's an embarrassment element to it. I wouldn't say it's all of it, but I do think it's an embarrassment element that the more people who see Putin, who is a strategist by nature, he's an intelligence junkie. He reads intelligence reports every single day. His ability to process data is pretty impressive. And that's one of the ways he kind of made his way up the ladder. And I think he just completely shames the current convalescent in chief. David, doesn't this just mean that they move forward with Newsom or Michelle earlier than planned? Yeah, that's the thesis, and that may happen, but they're both not polling well. That's the problem. Biden is actually the best one they've got. He's an incumbent, right? So incumbents generally come in with a default advantage. The others aren't. They end up becoming new, and people are probably going to rather go with what they know, which was Trump. When they had Trump, things were good, right? You had peace abroad and prosperity at home. Let's go with that. Make America great again. What's the problem? Newsom can come later. So I don't think it's going to work in their favor, but we'll see. Jules, question 2020. Joe couldn't speak. Remember, he was in the basement. His slogan was, "Elect me, we must beat Biden." I have it on video. Frigging recurrent commercial. Yes, I know. Absolutely. But his muscular degeneracy in his oral faculties have gotten worse. So he's, you could hear the attempt to keep the saliva in the mouth and all that sort of stuff. That's all evidence of a kind of cognitive degeneration, as I understand it. That's just gotten increasingly worse. If you thought, in other words, let me put it this way: if you thought it was bad in his basement, yeah, you ain't seen nothing yet, as it were. Melissa, tell us how they would bring in another Dem-ass hat to replace Joe. I've been doing some reading. Nobody really knows. So the argument is they would bring him in at the convention and then just hand over all of the delegates that Joe won to them. Because Joe isn't campaigning. He's not doing much, right? And there's no other campaigning outside of Joe Biden's Democratic opponent, the congressman from Minnesota. There's no other campaign apparatus. So it seems like the only way they would be able to do it is just to hand over the delegates to another candidate. But again, then that, don't think knives don't come out at that moment. Hey, wait a minute. I want them. So don't think they can just throw Michelle and everyone's going to be behind it. you'll probably see a Democrat civil war erupt as a result over that. So we'll see. But right now, I mean, the very fact that we're even talking about it shows you how serious it is for Biden. Jules, I watched Putin also and listened to the Tucker Afterthought. Putin did appear wounded, it seemed, from Clinton. Thoughts? Hillary was on X bashing him last night. Useful. Yeah, no, I know. Well, yeah. Hillary, who's the real puppet of, who's the real pawn of Russian disinformation, right? Yeah, no, I look, I think so. There's an interesting thesis about Putin that he changed in office. And he started off as a very pragmatic, pro-liberal reformer in the Kremlin. That's why he was handpicked by Yeltsin. He was seen to be Yeltsin 2.0 originally. And it's hard to know why and how and what the fixed historical points are, but he may have revealed some of them last night. The interactions he had with NATO officials, DC officials, and the absolute arrogance and condescension and dismissiveness of these people, just pushing them away. No, we don't need. We make the rules, you don't. And seeing how the Russian people were extremely uncomfortable with the bringing in of liberal values. Russians are very conservative people, extremely conservative people, culturally speaking. Again, it's in its own Russian way. It's not going to be perfect. They're not going to go down the choir boy checklist here, but they tend to be very, because as are Armenians, for example, and so they Hungarians, so they became very uncomfortable with this move towards liberalism. Geopolitically, strategically, they became very uncomfortable with this constant move towards the border of Russia via NATO forces, just like we were with the Cuban Missile Crisis in a reverse scenario. So I think a number of those things seem to create a Putinism that, in effect, recognize, and we see it in 2012, that is one fixed point when he starts talking civilizationally, when he's running for his third term. In 2012, he started talking about how the West was dying, the West was decaying, the West was falling apart, and the only way we can ensure that Russia does not fall into the abyss with the West is to revitalize distinct Russian civilization. The answer is not West. The answer is in our own 1,000-year history and in turning east to these other civilization states, rising civilization states like China and India and Saudi Arabia and Turkey. That is going to be the future, and then help build up both Africa and to those who were willing, South America. At that time, it was Lula, if I recall, and now it's Lula again in Brazil. So, yeah, I mean, that's when he said, "That's it. We're done. We're done with the West." And then after the Maidan Revolution, he even said it last night. He said that's when you crossed the line. That was it. That's when we knew we had to act. So he spent the last 8 years planning for this. So they're going to win. I mean, this took Ukraine and the United States, obviously, totally by shock, surprise. So Russia's going to win this. They've planned out every scenario. They're going to win it. They already have. And I do think it's all part of this very interesting, what you notice, very interesting sort of, I don't know if I would say wounded, but there was a very interesting turn at some point where Putin said, all right, I'm done. I'm done being a stooge for this new liberal world order. I'm done with it. It's not going to happen. There is a new world order rising, and it's a civilizationalist world. We're going back. We're going to revitalize the Russian Orthodox Church. We're going to revitalize the power of the Russian orthosphere. We're going to revitalize the Eurasian economy, and we're going to revitalize our geopolitical alliances with Asia as over and against the West. So there you go. David, why are polls concerned about age? It might be clear that Biden's declined cognitive ability, but that's not necessarily due to. Oh, sure. No question, Dave. Yeah, that's right. We're being ageists, aren't we? We're being chronological snobs. No, granted. I mean, we could have cognitive decline irrespective of age as well. I think it's just the term too old has just become a euphemism for that. It's become equated with someone who's not all there. So that's why I just think it's just a cultural thing. Logan, do you think the down ballot votes are going to go to the GOP as well? Not at this point. No. It is a serious thing, and we're going to have to start addressing this at some point, probably as we approach the summer. But right now, as we speak, the GOP is a mess. Trump is rocking it. Trump is crushing it. Look in Texas. He's up 10 in Texas, but freaking Cruz is up 2. And we're seeing that over and over and over and over again in all kinds of scenarios where Trump is up in districts, but the Republican is down to the Democrat. Republicans have to get their shit together or they are going to go the way of the Tories. You've seen what's happened overseas. The Tories didn't know what to do with the new voter demographic that they inherited as a result of the December 2019 national elections that gave the Tories the biggest landslide they had seen in a century. They didn't know what to do. They're all, neoliberal, neocon globalists. They don't know how to represent the interests of rural blue-collar voters. They don't know. And so they didn't. And so those voters turned away from them. And that's exactly what's happening to the Republican Party. The Republican Party has not figured out how to get out and get the confidence of the rural blue-collar voter any more than they get the confidence of the urban voter. They are just seen as a party of bankers and special interests in Ukraine. So they're going to have it. We got to get rid of Mitch McConnell, and we've got to put in MAGA conservatives as the primary representatives of the party. And the more people see that, the more they're going to trust their vote to a party that has otherwise never missed a opportunity to stab us in the back. That simple. That's why Trump has so much support and confidence, and why the Republicans are struggling. Sean, Dr. Steve, with a combination of that disastrous press conference, the Tucker interview of Putin, what do you think the chances are more and more investigation, more and more information coming out from the 2020 steal? Do you think there's a chance of reversing judicial appointments by Biden? No, I don't. I don't think we've gone that far. I'm just going backwards. So for me, it's just it's ultimately doing what Orban has been able to do. What Narendra Modi in Italy is. Orban from Hungary, if you don't know. Narendra Modi in Italy. Now I'm pulling a body. Narendra Modi in India has been able to do. These are we saw Nayib Bukele in El Salvador has been able to do. You have to win a supermajority. Got to get a supermajority. And what in the federal government, once you've got that supermajority, you have to use the power of the office to its ultimate, constitutionally speaking, to basically clean house of any and all, in this case, liberal Democrat presence. So this would be employing a Schedule F, which could fire up to 60,000 government workers at once. But you don't leave a hole. This is where I hate you libertarians drive me nuts. It's like you snatch defeat from the jaws of victory here. You don't leave a power vacuum. You fill that with MAGA loyalists. And then the MAGA loyalists make sure the town is owned by MAGA. See, right now the problem is Democrats own DC. The Republicans only rent. And the Democrats own it because they own the deep state. What the Republicans have to do, like a dentist, is they have to drill in and clean out that deep state, but then fill in the gaps of what's left with their own MAGA loyalists. Now you say, oh, but that means now we're just going to have the same thing, but with MAGA loyalists. No, we're going to have the same power that they have, but with MAGA loyalists. How they use it, that's going to be up to us in terms of how we push it. Democrat voters want them. We're seeing it with the juries. Democrat voters want them to use the deep state to punish us. They want them to punish us. So we replace that deep state with a MAGA deep state. And now we decide if anyone gets punished or not. Now it's politics. Politics is about the use of power. So we're not going to be able to reverse any of his appointees, but we can sure stop it hands down by owning the town. That's our job. That's what we've got to do. That's what Trump failed to do his first time around in draining the swamp. Will there be more investigations? Not coming out of the current White House or coming out of the current media, but perhaps, I mean, we're already seeing it with Matt Gaetz and the J6 resolution that they'll put before Congress and see which Republicans don't vote for it, that Donald Trump was not guilty of insurrection. Again, it's just a formal acknowledgement by one of our branches of government that Trump did not commit insurrection. It's a way of now going back and building the kind of cultural memory of those events that we should have in perpetuity. So we'll see if they do something comparable with the 2020 election and some of the shenanigans. Again, we're still waiting on a ruling from the judge in Georgia on Dominion machines. That was supposed to come last week. It didn't. So we're still waiting on that. We're still waiting on some things that some of the investigations that are happening in states. They'll be ongoing because it was so obviously an insane election. So we'll see just how it plays out. Thanks, Sean. Wendy, if Biden is not having a natural decline, what if they're drugging him? And all this is part of some sort of plan. I'm not normally a conspiracy theorist, but nothing else makes sense. And well, I'm with you. I mean, yeah, conspiracy theories are they're just truth, right? Truth just 10 years not revealed or before they're revealed. Yeah. So like Theoden, your Lord of the Rings, King Theoden was being not really drugged. He was under a spell by Wormtongue and Saruman. And so they were doing his bidding. And the spell was he couldn't remember who he was, and he was completely out of it. I don't know. I don't know. I just think it seems he's been. My thing is they would have had to have been drugging him during the 2020 campaign. Maybe they did. I don't know, but he was already exemplifying some pretty significant cognitive gaps back then. Now it's embarrassing at this point. Jeff, question, Steve. You lost some members claiming you're a Putin stooge. After yesterday's confirmation, pretty much dementia issues, you think you'll lose any sleep over it? Right, granted, no question. Anyone with two brain cells to rub together could plainly see Biden's mental problems more than 3 years ago. No, a Putin stooge, not with regard to Biden. And I don't know if you meant, or you're just conflating the two. Not with regard to Biden, with regard to the Ukraine conflict. But no question. I'm with you, Jed. No, I haven't. I mean, at beginning, it bothered me because I thought, so in 2022, when the special military operation was launched, and it's almost been 2 years, in February 2022, I thought, I'd been doing not full time, but I've been on social media, particularly YouTube, for 5 years. And I thought, especially with our insiders members, I thought they were a little bit, how do I say this without sounding condescending? I don't know if it's possible. But I don't mean it that way. I'm going to try to say it so that because I want to be gracious to them. But I thought they understood the world from the paradigm I was giving them, from the perspective of the paradigm I was giving them better. How's that? It's It's better than me saying, I thought they understood the world better, right? I thought they understood the world better from the vantage point of the paradigm, this geopolitical new conservative age paradigm that I was giving them. That re-territorialization was happening as globalism was breaking up. Re-territorialization was happening all over the world, but not everybody was re-territorializing the same way. Some are going to be civilizationalist states. Some are going to be breakaway independence republics. Some are going to be make America great again nationalist movements. They're all conservative. They're all re-territorializing the same way. And the places where the re-territorialization can end up smacking against each other is what Sam Huntington of Clash of Civilizations called cleft regions. And cleft regions are where you have two clashing civilizations overlapping, like the Balkans and Yugoslavia. And one of them was Ukraine. You had two, like Putin explained last night, you had a civilization to the east of the Dnieper River, and you have a civilization to the west of the Dnieper River. The west is much more pro-Catholic. It's much more pro-Europe. To the east, they're much more Orthodox, pro-Russia. They're two different civilizations. And just like in Yugoslavia, inevitably they may clash. I thought they understood that. But no, anytime I said that, it was the response was, but Putin. So it was sad. But thanks, Jeff. I appreciate it. With you here, makes it all the better. Grandma Joe, is there a letter from old single cell to Fanny in which he says that if she doesn't put Trump in jail, we're all effed? I don't know. Who's old single cell? Is that Biden? I heard something about that. Wasn't that Hillary? I think that was Hillary, but I don't think that was to Fanny. I think that was the 2016 campaign. I heard reports that Hillary made that comment as justification for launching this fraud of the Russian collusion, that if Trump wins, we're all effed. Yeah, something like that. So that's the most I know about it. Thanks, Grandma Joe. Ed, had Trump been president, how would he have overcome the situation, kept peace in Ukraine and Middle East? Good question. I don't think you would have had, so Ukraine, I don't think you would have had a problem because I think he was pushing for the Minsk Accords. Putin did say he was a bit disappointed in Trump last night that he didn't push enough, but Trump would have sided with Minsk Accords. Minsk Accords granted the two breakaway republics, Donetsk and Lugansk, in the Donbass region, partial sovereignty, just like similar to Scotland has in the UK. They can have their own parliaments, they could have their own militaries, but they are still part of the greater Ukraine. And Russia negotiated that peace, and Trump, I think, would have been was behind it and would have been behind it. And had that happened, we would never have had this issue. We would not have had NATO continuing its shenanigans, I think. And again, Trump has been very critical of NATO. Trump doesn't want to push NATO around the world. If anything, he wants to draw it back. Good question. The Middle East, I think they would have been. I don't know about that. I have to think about that. I was going to say, I think they would have been a little too scared. That tends to be Trump's ace in the hole. That certainly he intimidated Kim Jong-un in North Korea when he started letting him know, my button's bigger than yours, which is how you deal with these guys. I don't know. It seems like Hamas isn't intimidated. So I don't know. And Trump did not appear to be that. He did not appear to be that sympathetic with the two-state solution, which is, for right or for wrong, it's about 80% of the world's opinion on that. They want to see a two-state solution. He and Bibi didn't seem to be too sympathetic to that. So either way, I don't know about that. The Middle East one, it's as Putin would have said last night, something with the United States is, it's very, very complicated, very hard to figure out. So good question. But I think Ukraine, that would never have happened. That's for sure. Missy, where is Valerie Jarrett? That's a good question. They probably love to run her. I guess so. I don't know. Is she electable? Good question. I don't know. Don't know the answer to that. Very good question. You're right. She's been gone. Dr. Steve, with the Putin interview, is there a possibility of war crimes charges against anyone in the Biden regime for the war in the Ukraine? Not with the powers that be that run, the world courts and all, the international court. They're far left. They're globalists. They're liberal. It's not going to happen. That's why these guys, in the EU and in WEF and in DC, that's why they feel so brazen. They feel like, and that's, you got that a bit from the Putin conversation last night. They just feel like they're the masters of the universe and they can do anything. So I don't think so. I don't think anything's going to come out of that. Again, it's just we got to defeat them and just, basically ensure that they never come in again. That's basically what we have to do. Anne, are you pulling a Biden here, Doctor C? Am I forgetting? My memory's just fine, Anne. My memory's just fine. That's your opinion, not the opinion of the press. I need my oatmeal crusted lips. LaDaniels, do you fear President Kamala Harris? We be very, very afraid. I think the world fears a President Kamala Harris. Yes. I don't fear her in the sense of, it would be a landslide. Just her, yes, I'll leave it at that. Was Murray one of the justices? Clerk. Yeah, it was Gorsuch. Yeah, Neil Gorsuch. Yeah, I thought I heard one of the comments mentioned that it was a clerk to Gorsuch. Yeah, you got it. Deborah, what impact will RFK Jr. have on 2024? Will Dems turn on him? Good question. We don't know yet. That's the answer. So I go with Rich Barris and his analysis on it. Rich is really good at polling, particularly the suburbs. Particularly the rural areas, the exurbs. Most of the national polls show that it's having an adverse effect on Biden by 1 or 2 points when he's factored in. But when you break it down into regions and counties and states and so forth, then it gets a little more complex. And it looks like he might, even like in rural Pennsylvania, or rural Iowa, Wisconsin, he might even be taking some votes away from Trump. Will Dems turn to him? No, Dems are all in on Biden. They're on the top. They're at the top caste level of this new refeudalized order, and they want to stay there. And they don't care how senile Biden is. They'll keep voting. But the margins of Democrat vote, those who are very concerned about the state of the country, the border, employment, inflation, and are not so ideological. So we're talking like a lot of Latinos and so forth. They are defecting. They're not defecting to RFK. I don't see any evidence of that. They are defecting to Trump. Same with black men, particularly 20%. Black men are consistently 20% of black vote in general, but a higher percentage. I think it's in the high 30s of black men are going towards Trump. So that's huge. Non-white working class. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see to what extent RFK continues to be a factor. LaDaniels, do you know Putin is asked about joining? Did you know? Yeah. I was shocked by that. I also feel Putin seemed truly hurt by Clinton's response to his asking. I think it really bothered him. Yeah, that was, again, prior to, if I recall, it's 2006, 2007, 2008. Again, I'm having my Biden moment here. I forgot. I thought the Munich conference was 2006, if I recall. That was a NATO conference. You could watch the speech. Just put Munich conference. Munich Security Council, Munich Security Conference, Putin, and you'll get it. It's 2006. Almost getting 20 years ago. And he makes it very clear NATO is not to go near Ukraine. That was a NATO conference. He spoke there. He was invited to attend every one of them until after that. And then he stopped coming. Charles, will Biden be replaced before? We'll see. I don't think so. My sense is they're going to run him because he's the best they got, if you can believe it. That's what a sad testimony of the Democratic Party. But he's the best they got. They're going to run him, and they're just going to try to minimize the disaster for November, probably by turning to a lot of shenanigans. Dr. Steve, given how many things need to be fixed in D.C., if you were a President Trump advisor on day one, where would you start? Oh, good question. Where would I start? I'd schedule F. Well, no, stop. Border would be number one. Stop the leak at the border immediately, and then begin the process of deportation. That's number one. Number two, schedule F. Clean out immediately the deep state. Go full ape. Go full animal on the deep state. Day one. Those for me would be the two major priorities. 3, drill baby drill. Executive order, get rid of every single idiot green, executive order that Biden's. Just reverse all. Immediately reverse all of Biden's executive orders. Seal that border. Enact Schedule F, and start and begin. I would begin begin launching the investigations immediately, and start exposing just how crooked Washington D.C. has become, and for the whole nation to see it, and implicate the media while you're at it, because they've just been willing stooges for this whole process. Jules, do you find Russian history and World War II connections as interesting as I? Putin stated that Ukraine were just new Hitlers, neo-Nazis. Odd. That's the term the Democrats use. Ilya didn't know that Zelensky's father fought against Hitler in World War. It was a fascinating conversation, and one that clearly I don't know whether or not any of our leaders could ever possibly give an interview like that. I don't think Russians are very, very steeped in history. They love history, to their credit. So Putin's claim of not keep in mind, Russians have a slightly different relation to Nazis than we do. They actually invaded their country. Physically invaded their nation. And they lost hundreds of thousands, if I recall, of soldiers fighting the Nazis. So the Russians hate Nazism. They despise Nazism. They despise fascism, and they just see that with the Bandera tribe in Ukraine, and the Azov regiments that have achieved tremendous power and influence in Kiev, who are bona fide Nazis. They are. You can literally trace a straight line to their Nazi past, to the World War II. So they're the real deal. This isn't rhetoric. He's not using the term rhetorically like the Democrats would. He's using it literally. We fought these guys, and then he's pointing out that Zelensky's father fought against these guys, and now Zelensky's making peace with him. So he said it's beyond his ability to comprehend why he would do that. The checks must be very large. Rumble chat, Rumble. Why are Republicans so dumb? Oh gosh, where do I count the ways? Leave Biden in there for an almost guaranteed victory. No. No. I don't think Republicans are under any. They're not under any illusions that Biden is going to be taken out. They're not going to invoke the 25th. Merrick Garland is not going to launch any investigation. None of that is going to happen. This is kabuki theater, but it's good kabuki theater, right? This is kabuki theater. This is pouncing on Biden's Achilles heel. This is pressing in on his most sensitive soft spot in his campaign, his age and senility. That's what 76% of voters are concerned about. More than the border, more than inflation, more than the economy. It's his age and his senility. And now the Republicans smell blood. they can wound him politically by putting this on the front page. This is so serious. There should be a 25th Amendment invoked immediately. He should resign immediately. If he can't drive a tractor, how could he possibly run the country? Right? That's what they're doing. No. He's not going anywhere. They're just politically pouncing on him at this point. That's all. So that said, your first question was absolutely, why are the Republicans so dumb? They are. They're a dumb party because there is a radical discrepancy between the leadership and the rank and file voter. A radical cultural discrepancy. So they're not able to communicate with one another. So Mitch McConnell thinks the most important thing the Senate could be doing right now is sending $60 billion to Ukraine. Is that what you think? No. So that's where they're so down. And then they go, why isn't anyone voting for us? Franz, Dr. Steve, would it be fair to say that foreign aid is contributing to our border crisis? Yeah, sure. Yeah, because right, foreign aid is putting America last when all is said and done. I have no problem with foreign aid, but our addiction to being the world's policeman makes our foreign aid the connective tissue to that police authority that we have around the world. So that's why we're more worried about Ukraine and Israel than we are about Texas and its southern border. It's that simple. It's because they're globalists, not nationalists. So yeah, in that sense, I could see it as contributing to the border crisis. Absolutely. What do we got, Josh? He's frozen. Franz Paul is frozen. Oh, that's it. All right. I just got a message from Josh. That's it. We're done. All right, guys. There you go. It's good. Well, obviously, it's a huge news pack. Oh, Ukraine is money laundering. Oh, that's it. I saw one quick. All right. Obviously, gang, it's a huge news pack weekend. And if anything really pops up, I'll give a quick update video. Until then, gang, have a wonderful weekend. I'm going to try to get a little sleep and some rest and shake off this cold, and I'll be fresh for you on Monday morning. God bless, gang.